Pod.
Rugby pod.
Hello everyone and welcome to a midweek episode of the Rugby Pod. Jim is on a plane to America with 4 kids. I think he's flying business class and his kids are in economy. Probably not. He's probably got his knees around his ears. But I am joined by the mighty Dan Bigger from Australia, straight after the game, Biggs. How is it? How are you?
Straight after the game, Goodey, there's a load of clearing up going on behind. We've managed to find some internet in the back of the stadium here in Canberra, which the trip to Australia has been amazing. We've been like in the sort of Australia Zoo. We've been to this, the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge and everything. And then we came to Canberra and we found a really nice mall to go to. So
yeah, that's it. There ain't much in Canberra, is there? Have you ever been there before?
There's not a huge amount. Never. First time.
Yeah. There's a casino I spent a lot of time in. When I played Super Rugby, I spent a lot of time in the casino and that was it. It's not a great place, Canberra, is it? My
missus and kids are sort of, they're not quite sure they signed up for this part of the trip sort of thing. But they're, no, it's good. I mean, stadium's awesome. Really enjoyed the game and it's manic, loads going on, but enjoying it. What about you, Goody? You all good?
Yeah, mate, just training hard, getting ready for holiday and watching
ruggers. I was just about to say, you are looking trim, Goody.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's the slimming filter that we're using, so yeah, all good. Well, I wondered actually, before we get into the rugby, and we're obviously going to talk about the game a lot, I need to ask you about the comms, because I think you're flying on that. And then I listened today and there's you and Rog having a few arguments. And is it because you're in Canberra and it's a shithole? Or is it because you're just like an old married couple that are just arguing the whole time?
I think we're spending too much time together. I think you know what it's like. Yeah. You know what it's like, Goody. You're spending too much time with it and you're thinking, all right. And we've actually, like, Rog is an absolute legend.
Yeah,
like,
he is.
Just world class. His kids have been out here as well. He's got like a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old out here. And they've been basically babysitting my 2 as well. Yeah. So it's been brilliant from that point of view.
You had a few nights out?
No, nothing yet. It's been really quiet. We had a dinner out last night. Yeah, honestly, it was a different trip, Goody. It would be a different trip if you were on here. You need to get yourself out here.
Jeez. No, I'm going out with the family to Crete in a couple of days. So
nice, mate. Enjoy yourself there.
Part of me would rather be leading the charge out in Australia drinking and taking people under my wing like you.
It's great. Rog is great because he's got like he gives that coach perspective as well. You know what I mean? So you're kind of diving into that perspective rather than just a player pundit mode as well type of thing. So he's been great. And I think it's great. I've enjoyed sort of disagreeing with Rog and Rog disagreeing with me. But
yeah, no, mate, you get well.
We'll get on a little bit better.
You only need Johnny Sexton to join you in comms, and there'll be handbags flying everywhere, lads.
Well, I was going to say it'd be tasty if that was the case. Yeah.
Oh, mate, you're going well though. I'm enjoying the content. It's good, mate. It's very good.
This episode is presented by Sky Sports on Now.
So, the British and Irish Lions are on tour, James.
They certainly are, Andrew. And if the millions of Rugby Pod listeners want to watch the action, then Sky Sports is the only place to do it. All 3 test matches and every single minute of the 6 warm-up games, live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, they can add or remove memberships whenever they like.
Oh, lovely stuff.
18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
What's your initial reaction to the game?
Very similar to a lot of the other games, to be honest. Some really good stuff in attack, some good shape, and then not being clinical. Obviously, we saw 3 tries get held up, and I thought it was ironic that Pierre Brousset, the only one he gave was the only one that was probably actually held up, because James Lowe, even though he should have scored in the corner, probably did get it down, as did Josh van der Veer, probably did get it down, but there was no conclusive evidence from the TV shots. But the one that Pierre Brousset gave was the one that was nowhere near being put down. So, listen, the breakdown's an issue, and how we protect the breakdown in our attacking phases. But I thought there was some good stuff. And listen, this Brumbies outfit, they're no mugs. They came 3rd in the Super Rugby comp in terms of league position, lost in the semi-finals to the Chiefs, which should have been at home in hindsight, because the Chiefs obviously lost that playoff game, but still got the home semi-final. And Stephen Larkham, as you know, Biggs, and you've competed against him in terms of when he was a coach with Australia and all sorts, he's an intelligent footballer. And they're rolled up for one game, right, to go firing hard at the Lions. And it was physical, it was intense. You saw a kind of different level, I thought, of intensity from the Lions, both sides of the ball, at the breakdown, physically, making hits. But then also, I think a lot of these lads have possibly got one eye on, don't want to get injured for the test matches as well. And they won't say that, but it's probably a natural thing, whereas the Brumbies were right on the limit, weren't they? They were right on edge. It's their be-all and end-all to try and smash the Lions. And it's a tough spot for the lads to be in. But again, it was comfy enough and there was good enough bits to keep everyone happy, but plenty to work on.
We asked the question, Goodey, in commentary. Do you think that performance tonight is good enough to beat the Wallabies in 10 days' time?
Probably not. But then the Wallabies weren't great against Fiji, were they? The Wallabies probably performed in a similar way to what the Lions are doing against Fiji, where they had loads of opportunities, they weren't clinical enough. And then the Fijians produced some brilliance, but then they had enough to win it at the end, right? So I wouldn't say either team are standing there going, we're on fire, we're ready for a test series. But like you boys were talking about on comms, and I think the lads were a bit in studio as well, saying how there's no midweek game in the build-up to the test matches where you get a proper solid week's training as a team against 15 pissed off players that aren't starting in the test match, and they'll drive the intensity as well, and it'll ramp up, right?
That'll help massively, I think. I really do think that will give them, because just speaking to Finn Russell off on the Sky Sports piece afterwards, and he was kind of saying, like, basically the first time he learned the plays was in the captain's run effectively for this game. Yeah. So you just goes to show how little preparation you have with the travel, playing, recovering, etc. It's so difficult for these players to just expect it to be perfect. The one thing I think Joe Schmidt will have seen enough in these opening few matches. I'm not saying Australia are ranked 8th in the world and the Lions should win. Yeah. But the Lions play well enough in terms of probably deliver like a 7 out of 10 performance, the Lions win. But I think Joe Schmidt would have seen enough in terms of the blueprint from the Waratahs and tonight is that if you can put as much pressure on them in terms of line speed, if you can make the Lions cough up errors, which they've done consistently on tour, haven't they, in terms of handling errors has been a big concern and breakdown has been a big concern. I think you summed it up really well, Goody. They're attacking shape and they look fit and strong and powerful in that shape, don't they? They look like they're, I thought Finn, we sort of had that little WhatsApp group, and I think he looks as good as he's ever been, Finn Russell, doesn't he? Yeah. In terms of
he's the man.
It looks like he's got time on the ball. And I think the last couple of years we've seen a real change in Finn Russell. I think previously you could probably label him a little bit up and down, too many errors in his game. But you look at the last couple of years since he's joined Bath, probably he actually referenced that as well, saying that since he's joined Bath, he knows that there's maybe a different way to play, and maybe that the kicking game is more of a weapon rather than just, the ball slowed down, we've got to kick the ball away. It's kind of like that's maybe just been put in his psyche, and he paid a lot of credit to Ben Spencer in that, and obviously Jameson Gibson Park tonight and last week. So I do think that there's tons of positive. I think their build-up play, the set piece,
scrum was
really good, but there will be
good.
Scrum was good again. But you'd expect, look at the pack they put out tonight in terms of Genge, Sheehan, Furlong, McCarthy, Itoje, Chesham at 6, Conan at 8.
Big bits of kit, all of them, aren't they?
So you think that they're going to be in a good spot there, and but I think the concern would be those 2 points. Am I missing anything? Would you say those two are the concerning bits?
I say the major concern for me is every game we started slowly, right? And I don't know whether that's a product of how ramped up the opposition are. It's it's at their home ground. It's their one shot playing against the Lions to really try and get stuck in, and they've come out with a massive energy. But I suppose that's going to be the same for the Wallabies playing at home in the first test, right? So we seem to start a little bit slowly, concede a try, and then we're getting into our flow a bit. And that will be something that Faz wants to find out why. And it comes from a couple of errors, like you saw, the first play of the game, little error from the kickoff. Then we give a penalty away for blocking from the kick. And then the line out drive, there's a penalty from that as well, and it just leads to a couple of penalties, and before you know it, Brumbies are scored. And I think you said it on comms, actually, you get away with it at club level sometimes with giving a couple of penalties away back to back, but internationally, and especially with the finishes that the Australians have got and how clinical they could be, and I'm not saying they will be, but you ramp in everything up a level and you get punished more at the highest level for those indiscretions that some of them are needless, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's loads to work on, but there's loads of good stuff as well. Like, we should be quite positive about it. 3 times we got held up over the line, which another day we score all 3 tries, we're winning by nearly 50 points, right? But that's just maybe a product of not having enough training time together. As we keep mentioning, there's travel. Like Faz said it in the interview afterwards, didn't he? He said, we're up early in the morning, we travel into Adelaide, we'll do a captain's run on Friday and play on Saturday. And the lads have got to rest as well. And the game's changed massively in terms of rest and recuperation and actual minutes on the training pitch where you can go bone on bone and have a proper dig at each other. That's changed massively from 4 years ago when you were on the tour, which was a COVID-related tour, wasn't it? But then even you go back 8 years to that Lions tour in New Zealand when you actually, you had a bit more training time probably because you could train more, right?
You reminded me of something actually, Goodey, of 4 years ago when the test team was named. You said about sort of 15 pissed off blokes you're going to be training against, and you could tell that there was a difference in the intensity. And when it's supposed to be like level 2, when it's supposed to be just grab, there were some boys who were level 6 who were sort of chucking it about, and you could tell that there was
name and shame. Who was it?
Who was it? Yeah, name
no,
and shame.
No, I'm not naming it.
Well, I tell you, no, it wouldn't have been me. I never got above level 1 in training. So, yeah.
But I think you make a really good point that week will give them time to actually test their skills under a lot of pressure. Probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, a lot of their handling errors in particular have come when they've been under real pressure from line speed, and they probably haven't faced that probably since the Argentina week, have they? In terms of that. So I agree with you, Goody. I think there's loads to be positive on. Can they focus on those 2 areas over the next 10 days? And if they bring those down sort of 15-20%, then they're in with a really good shout of winning that first test. I suppose that the big concern is Blair Kinghorn in terms of how badly he's injured, because
has Dr. Bigger been in there and had a look at his knee?
I haven't seen anything. Not that I would be overly qualified, Goody, but I would say, clearly he doesn't look good coming off after, what was it, about 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so?
Well, he got the hit earlier. He played on for another 10 or 15, I think, but then I'm no doctor, but I reckon it was like medials. And you can kind of half play on for a bit with medials, can't you? And then it just kicks in. So your medial ligaments in your knee. But then a couple of things I saw afterwards. I saw Sione Tuipulotu go up to him after the game, and they had a little word. You don't hear anything that's said. And Blair Kinghorn's face didn't look good. And then Sione gives him a hug, which, from that perspective, you're kind of looking at it going, it doesn't look like Blair Kinghorn's that comfy with it. So it'll be interesting what they do. And Hugo Keenan's going to play Saturday now, we all presume. And if he goes well, you've got, an outstanding fullback to play there. But it does leave us thin, right?
It's quite a big game for Hugo Keenan on Saturday now. Not so much because I think if Blair Kinghorn's out, I think Hugo Keenan plays. But he looked a little bit short of match fitness on when he played the other night, didn't he? And I think he needs another bit of time in the saddle to just get some time, get some minutes, and get up to speed a little bit. So you look at the 3 options that could have played fullback before the tour started. It was Daly, who's obviously gone home injured, Keenan, who's been ill and then had a bit of a bump, hasn't played, and now Kinghorn's had a bump. So you look at all 3 options, haven't really played. Daly's gone, but the other 2 haven't actually had many minutes in terms of their belt. And I was just trying to think, is there another option?
Oh, Marcus is the only one, right?
I mean, Marcus, but it doesn't seem as if that's he really wants to do that, does it? You don't get the impression that if there's an injury to Blair Kinghorn, Marcus is going to be in contention for that.
No. Like, you'd expect Hugo Keenan to start, right? And if he gets through Saturday and does all right, he'll be starting the test matches. And it's an interesting thing now. You've got to wait a day or so to see how bad Blair is. And, Faz could just call someone up anyway. It's not like a World Cup where there's no laws that say you can only replace someone if someone leaves the squad, like in a World Cup squad. Whereas he could just call up, a Tom Jordan from New Zealand, or he could call up a Darcy Graham, or he could call up Freddie Stewart or Blair Murray, one of these guys, just to have that extra protection. But in reality, I think Hugo Keenan's going to start, and then Marcus isn't a pick me as a starting test fullback, but he can come on and do a job. And he had some nice touches today. Defensively, there was that one for the first try where he gets a bit tight. And I actually thought it was Tommy Freeman who made the error. And he flew right into where Gary Ringrose got to. And then Marcus is kind of half following him. But Marcus's sort of starting position perhaps wasn't right, but he'd only just come on. But Mark, the touch for Ringrose's try, the little support line after Ringrose's break, and then the kick through was class. So he's not an option to start, but he's certainly someone that can do a job if needs be in a game towards the back end.
I'm wondering, Goodey, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. How many of that starting 15, assuming everyone's fit, how many of that starting 15 start next Saturday?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you get the whole front row. I thought Ty Furlong had his best game for a long time. And I'm not saying he's tearing up trees, but the scrum functioned well. He had some carries. He was about the park, putting some hits in. And that's kind of the best Ty Furlong we've seen in quite a while, I think. So those two, him, Sheehan and Ellis Genge start in the front row. Second rows, I think McCarthy and Itoje look pretty good together. Again, McCarthy was getting about the field a bit. Not sparkling, but doing enough. Chesham was very good at 6, I thought, and has really been a player that stood up and put his hand up this tour and really stood out with his performances. And it seems and it feels like they're going down that route now of a rangy 6. So, potentially over to Tyburn.
Does he start ahead of Tyburn?
I think if you're picking the test team tomorrow on form, probably, yeah. But then we know Andy Farrell's Ireland coach. He knows Tyburn very well, and Tyburn's a test match animal, right? We said it on the pod the other day. So it's a tough call, but Ches could do no more. Like, the big ginge is flying. He's a very good line-out option, a good ball carrier, and he can do a job there. And then Jack Conan at 8, I think definitely starts at 8. But 7's the big one. I think your boy Jack Morgan's in prime position now. His stock rose from the stands. I
was going to say, everyone was sort of saying, is he the right call to be picked, Jack Morgan? He's had a tough year with Wales, tough 2 years, but his performances on tour, and I just think it shows what he can do in a team which is packed full of other, top class international players as well, doesn't it? So we were discussing this. I think it's 6. I think they've decided it's probably going to be a flip of a coin between Tyburn and Chesham. I think 8, Conan starts. I think it gives him back the amount of hard yards he gets for that team. And
he's like everyone's dad, isn't he?
Nothing flash.
He's like everyone's dad with his dirty moustache, and he's just a big man, and he just carries big.
It is a dirty tash, isn't it?
Yeah. I love it.
And then we were saying 7. I asked Rog the question from a coach's hat, and he said, sometimes, when it's that tight, you've got Curry, Earl, Van der Flyer, Morgan, you pick any of those, you're thinking you're going to be pretty happy with. And the people who you leave out, do you go, I think when you pick 6 as a Burn or a Chesham, it does allow you to have two back rows on the bench. So you can allow yourself to have Pollock as an impact player, or Curry or Earl or whatever you have as an impact player to come on. So I think those 2 places, I think 6 and 7, and I'd say probably McCarthy's done enough to partner Itoje in the row, but I think 6 and 7 is probably the interesting ones, what they do. And I don't know what you think. I think the back line probably picks itself if everybody's fit.
Well, interesting. We'll get onto the back line in a second. I actually think from a 7's perspective, I think on form and on what Jack Morgan's shown, he should probably start as 7, but just got a sneaky suspicion that Faz knows Van der Fleer very well and will pick Van der Fleer potentially in that first test, going with the known, tried and tested. And then maybe Jack Morgan.
Give us a Welshie.
Yeah, give us a Welshie. You've only got one, mate. You've only got one. But then in reality, maybe seeing Van der Fleer and Pollock come off the bench together today, and Pollock, I thought, had some big impacts on the game. He's got to have a place on the bench at least, Pollock, and I think that's probably where he'll start the first test from the bench. But that'll be an interesting call. But then backline, I don't know, mate. We're debating and we're stuck. Obviously, 9 and 10 pick themselves. Gibson Park and Finn Russell in terms of performance and what Faz wants from his players there. Centres is really tough because Aki and Ringrose tonight were outstanding. But Hugh Jones was wicked the other day as well at 13, and Tuipulotu is a brilliant player. Does he go favouritism? And I mean that not in a having a dig at Faz, but he knows the Irish boys. So potentially he could go a whole Ireland back line with Finn Russell at 10 and go Aki and Ringrose in the centres, because they look really good today together. I know Aki chucked it to his mate in the crowd in the first half when he's made the break. But Aki was back to some of his bulldozing best, wasn't he? Not a ball player necessarily, but just give him short passing opportunities. But, make him play to his strengths. So I suppose the biggest question, Freeman did some good bits, but as the game wore on, I thought he made a few errors.
Just chatting to a few of the Lions staff members there, I think he's in pole position. They like him. They like how strong and physical and quick he is and challenges in the air. I think the two wingers are set. I think Lowe with the kicking game, because the game is going to be a bit tighter, isn't it? And Goody, you know what it's like. You can't just run everything and play your way out all the time. I think Lowe's left peg is a huge weapon for any team he plays in, whether it's Leinster, Ireland, or the Lions. So I think those two are set. I think Kinghorn plays as long as he gets through and is fit. Otherwise, Keenan plays. And then it's kind of...
Who would you pick in the centres?
I think I would pick Aki and Ringrose, because they've probably... Only for the point of probably that they've played... Andy Farrell knows that in big moments, in big games...
Yeah.
He can rely on those two. Not that he can't on Tuipulotu or Jones, because they've been, like I said, I think you could pick probably any combination of the four and you'd be happy and it would be good enough to beat Australia. But I just think that he knows that those two deliver for him, can deliver. So he won't go to bed on Friday night thinking, I hope that Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu can deliver the form that they've shown over the last 6 months. Whereas he knows when he goes to bed on Friday night before that first test and he picks Bundy Aki and he picks Gary Ringrose, he's not thinking about it. Yeah, he knows what he's getting. So I think that's where he goes.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that's impressed me as well, and going back to Finn Russell, and tonight was a little bit evident of it. Goal kicking has never been a strength of Australian rugby since the days of probably John Eales, right? Gitz was a great kicker and all that stuff, but you've seen recently, over the last few years, it's not something you could say, geez, Australia got a great goal kicker. Finn Russell kicking his goals. I think did he miss one tonight? I think that was it. But he's been on fire goal kick. And that could make a massive difference in the Test series. And you've only got to go back to Curtly Beale slipping 12 years ago to know that it's a big thing in Test rugby, right?
I think he's only missed 2 or 3 on tour. He's had a few, and obviously the Lions are scoring quite a few tries and things. So I mean this. I want to say this in the most complimentary way to Finn Russell. Finn Russell is almost being on this tour very un-Finn Russell in a sense. Do you know what I mean? In terms of not that many flash big moments, but just really nice touches, pulling the team together, kicking his goals. And I think you can see with really good players around him, it's just bringing people into the game. And you make a really good point, Goody, because it's not a great stat. They have had some. You look at 12 years ago, I think they lost. What did they lose the first test by? 2 points, Australia?
Like
and they missed 5 kicks a goal.
First 2 were close, weren't they?
So you miss 5 kicks a goal and you lose a game by 2 points. It's hard to look anywhere else, isn't it, than your goal kicker. And Noah Loaseo being injured is a big blow for them. But they've got a guy in Tom Liner who's kicking at 90% for the Reds all year.
Yeah.
So
is he fit? Right, he's coming back to fitness, isn't he? What's the news from Australia?
Yeah, he's coming back to fitness. So no news really at the minute, but his name's been chucked up there in terms of the conversation. So you think he's going to be there or thereabouts. And, it's much of a muchness between the other 10s, really, isn't it, in terms of in Australia? Who do you pick? And I think if it's a bit of a toss-up of a coin and there's not much in it, you'd rather have the one who's kicking at 90% than at 70%, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. Any news from Australia on Bernard Foley or James O'Connor or Curtly Beale, like the old school? Get the old boys back in at 10.
I think Larkham's still looking quite fit. He said he may have a run out of 10. So I tell you what, they could do a lot worse than reselect Stephen Larkham. Imagine that. He looks fit. He looks strong. Just a brilliant player, wasn't he, back in the day? Larkham.
Great bloke as well. Great bloke.
But yeah, I don't think any of those old school guys are being touted at, unless Joe Schmidt's got a real surprise for us next week or the week after. But it's a shame, isn't it? Because I think I'm not saying Noah Loaseo is a Dan Carter or any of those guys, but he gave them a little bit of solidity, didn't he? He played the last number of tests. He kind of knows the system, knows the players. And I think for somebody, again, Australia are already up against it and up behind the 8 ball a little bit in this series, aren't they, in terms of where they are in the world rankings, transition, preparation. So to have lost your really steady playmaker who gives you a bit of a, gives you 6.5, 7 out of 10, nothing flash, doesn't make too many errors, is a bit of a concern for them, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Sports on Now.
The British and Irish Lions are down under for the tour, and I'm pretty excited to see how it's going to unfold, Jim.
Oh yeah, me too. I'll be glued to Sky Sports, as it's the only place to watch every thrilling moment. Andrew, who are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh, it's got to be Finn Russell, my favourite fly half, my favourite player, now champion of England as well. Finn Russell's the man. What about you, Jim?
I'm interested to see if Henry Pollock, at the age of 20, could make the Test match side. That's it.
There we go. And what are your predictions?
Predictions 2-1. I reckon Lions first, Australia second in Melbourne in front of 100,000 people, and it's a straight shootout in the third.
However the Lions get on, it's going to be very hard to take your eyes off the action. So make sure you catch all 3 tests and all 6 warm-up games live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August on Sky Sports.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, you can add and remove membership whenever you like.
Nice! Watch every match on Sky Sports, available to stream live with Now. 18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
It looks like we've lost Bigs there. Maybe Roger's unplugged his Wi-Fi cable.
Sabotage. Rog ain't happy. They're arguing in comms and he's like, fuck, those boys need to get on the beers together. But anyway, Biggs is gone.
Imagine being there for a week and not having a single beer.
Mate, I'd be on it every night. Jeez. I suppose he has got his kids with him and his missus, so the handbrake is there. The ball and chain and the handbrake with the kids. But I wouldn't be going anywhere with my kids or family. I'd be leading the charge. I would be leading the charge. The only thing to do in Canberra is go to the casino and drink. So get out there as quick as you can.
So the lads have got a couple of days now before the invitational test match on Saturday. Who needs a big game then? I mean, I'm presuming he's going to rest a lot of his starting test squad for that game, but who needs a big game who could potentially have a final push for one of those test 15 spots? Yeah,
I mean, we spoke in depth about the 7 position. So Jack Morgan, if he plays well again, and you presume that Jack Morgan might start at 7, then he is one for me that could really force himself into the test team. It's a toss of the coin between Ollie Chesham and Tyke Byrne at 6. So Tyke Byrne, he has a big performance. Again, does the Irish factor help his selection? He's a test match animal. Maybe Chesham coming off the bench is a good angle for that. So if he goes well, I think that there's something there. And then ultimately, probably the centres as a big question mark. And you've got Hugo Keenan at fullback if he plays well, independent on Blair Kinghorn's injury. But for me, Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu, or Huey Pilotu, as they like to be called. Again, those boys. Hugh Jones played exceptionally well the other day, didn't he? And that combination, the little ball to Hugh Jones from Tuipulotu, their understanding. But it does feel like they went to Aki and Ringrose for a reason against the Brumbies. And so they're probably the guys in with a shout. And then Matt Hansen as well. If he gets a start, probably you'd expect Duhan van der Merwe to be on the other wing, but I wouldn't say Duhan is in test consideration because of just on his own performances, but Mac Hansen is always there or thereabouts. So it'll be Mac or Tommy Freeman. So you're probably looking at those sort of 5 players as opportunities. Andrew Porter, can he have a big game and force himself back ahead of Ellis Genge? I'd say Tyke Furlong answered a few questions today that he should be starting at tight head, experience and the Irish factor and the quality of player. But yeah, I mean, there's a few. It's starting to take shape there. And I think the game against the Brumbies, it took shape around a test team with a few question marks. And, we'll see after the weekend who puts the hand up fully. But you say those are the lads that have got a chance.
Right, well, he was going to do this himself, but obviously his Wi-Fi's playing up. But Biggs is doing a Rugby Pod live show on the 30th of July in Sydney at Cheers Bar. Now, I think there's a couple of tickets left for that one. And then 2 days afterwards, on the Friday night before the last test, Andy Powell and Shane Byrne are going to be doing a live show in Scruffy's, which sounds like a good night out. I've heard it's pretty loose.
Well, that's the ideal combination of Scruffy's, isn't it? Andy Powell, scruffy behaviour always, and Shane Byrne, scruffy with his mullet. So the perfect combo to be drinking in Scruffy's with. Get your tickets.
Exactly. Well, tickets are available now at ticketpass.org, and all you have to do is search for the Rugby Pod. Thanks, Goody.
Thanks, Rob. And thank you to Dan Bigger over in Australia. Rowan O'Gara came and cut off his internet access because he wanted another row about whether to play more ball in hand or kick as he balls. They were having a bit of a row. They're doing a great job. But Rog, you don't fuck with Rog. Do not mess with Rog Biggs and get out for some beers. I was devastated when Dan Bigger told me he's not been on a night out yet. But maybe that's the difference between a top-class international and my good self. I'd be on the beers, lads. I'd be with the fans on the beers, not phoning home, not worrying about the kids because the nanny's doing that. But yeah, looking forward to another big weekend. And the pod back with big Jim Hamilton from USA in your ears on Tuesday.
Well, I'm not going to be here next week either, mate, because I'm going to be in Oz as well.
There you go. You're going to be in Oz. You're going to be with Biggs having no nights out as well, you lemon.
Well, I'm going to be prepping for this big run. This is what athletes do.
Get down the pub. Get down the pub, Rob. That's what you want to do.
All right, mate. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Good luck, mate. Go well. Sort out the blisters. And if in doubt, have a few beers.